Here at Retro Dodo, we're obviously massive fans of retro gaming. Show us a device that looks a bit like an original Game Boy, and we get very excited. It'll probably come as no surprise that we're also fans of old cartoons that were popular in the 80s and 90s. There seems to be a lot of overlap with these two fan bases, and a lot of the reason for that was probably due to the amount of licensed video games based on TV shows and movies from that era. Of all of these shows, there was probably none quite as huge as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And despite having watched some of the 1987 TV series when I was younger, it actually wasn't until the 2003 show that I considered myself a true fan. I loved this particular version of the Turtles. I collected the magazines, I still have a couple of the games, and I tuned into the show all the time. After the 2003 show ended though, I lost interest in the Turtles for quite a while. But in 2021, all of that changed when I found out about The Last Ronin, a darker Turtles story where 3 of the 4 brothers have been killed by the Shredder's grandson, and the final remaining Turtle sports a black bandana, wields all of his fallen comrades' weapons, and goes on a suicide mission to get his revenge. It's awesome stuff. This led me to discover the current main series of TMNT comics published by IDW, which I've been collecting for a while now. And on top of this, we've also had the release of the Shredder's Revenge and Cowabunga collection video games, the Mutant Mayhem animated film, and the announcement of a big budget Last Ronin video game. Needless to say, my passion for TMNT has been reignited, and I'm going through Turtle Mania all over again. But let's face it, you probably didn't come to this video expecting some guy to be talking about how he fell in love with the Turtles. No, you came for this. This is the Quarter Arcade's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cabinet, which was sent to us for review by Numskull. But the question is it actually any good, or is it just cashing in on all of that Turtles hype? Before we grab our katanas and shurikens to prepare to fight the Foot Clan, remember to check out our book, A Handheld History, if you're a fan of portable gaming. I know some of you will have made a New Year's resolution to read more books, so why not start here? It's available on Amazon and in retail stores, links will be in the description. First impressions of the cabinet are incredible. As to be expected with Quarter Arcades, the build quality and attention to detail is astonishing. They craft these cabinets to be as close to the original machines as possible, featuring the same artwork on the side, the backlit bezel art, the speaker grill placed above the screen, the 4 coin doors, and of course the 4-player control panel with coloured joysticks and buttons to represent the different turtles you can play as. In terms of visual appeal, this is absolutely perfect. Even the fake coin slots are backlit when you turn the cabinet on. There's just so many of these little details to look at here. I love how goofy this original arcade artwork is. April O'Neil is just a literal live-action person, while the turtles are illustrated, but in a different style to the background art, and it's all meshed together in this really ugly but strangely charming way. Even though I kinda hate it, I also kinda love it, and I'm glad that Quarter Arcades preserved it like this. When we turn the cabinet on with the switch on the back, the impressive 6-inch display turns on, and the visuals here look amazing. The colours are extremely vibrant, the display is bright and easy to see, and because the screen is fairly small, the graphics look awesome. It's not being stretched at all, and it's being displayed in its native 4:3 aspect ratio. The sound levels can be adjusted with a wheel on the back of the cabinet, and despite only featuring 3 watts of power, the speakers are pretty good. The bass isn't gonna blow the shell off of your back or anything, but it's not tinny, and the audio quality is generally great. It also has an internal rechargeable battery, which means that you can use the cabinet even if it's not directly plugged into a wall socket. It has a USB-C port on the back, which can either be used to supply it a constant feed of power from a wall socket adapter, or you can charge it, unplug it, and then put it on your shelf and play it wirelessly. The battery lasts for around an hour and 20 minutes, so it's not the longest battery life, but it's still a nice extra touch. So it looks awesome, the display is great, the sound is good, and you don't even need to mess around with wires, which all sounds amazing. But how is it to actually play? I was initially a little bit worried that because the joysticks and buttons are so small, it might be a little bit awkward to play a game that requires a certain degree of precision like this. However, it turns out that this isn't actually a problem at all, and the controls feel great. I love the feel of the joysticks clicking into place as you move them around, and the buttons get the job done even if they are a little bit soft to the touch. The issue with the controls would only really become apparent if you were to try to play this with more than one player. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is known for its simultaneous 4-player co-op, and while this cabinet does allow for that, because it's so small it would be uncomfortable to realistically play it like this. You'd be way too close to each other, huddled around a small screen, and you'd practically be holding hands due to how small the control panel is. Quarter Arcades are aware of this issue and have created their own USB controller which is specifically for these TMNT machines. You access these USB inputs by pressing the front coin doors in, which opens them up, revealing the hidden ports. I love this little element of interactivity with the cabinet, it's so much more interesting than just having the ports on the back. Now, this attempt to fix the multiplayer component of the game comes with its own set of problems. Firstly, the cabinet doesn't come with any of these controllers and they cost £20 each on Amazon, meaning a full set of 4 would set you back £80. I feel like it should have come with at least one controller, honestly. The second problem with this controller situation is that even if you did have all of the controllers, you'd still be huddled around a small screen, which isn't ideal when you're playing with a whole group of people. It's a shame that the cabinet doesn't have a HDMI output to connect it to a bigger display, because this, combined with the controller solution, would have actually have made the multiplayer of the game viable, and made it a more versatile device in general. As a quick side note, the Quarter Arcade's USB controllers are actually quite interesting. They're modelled after the NES controller, but the D-pad has a joystick attached to it, which makes it feel significantly more authentic for arcade games. This joystick is actually removable too, so if you prefer using a standard D-pad, you're covered. I just think this is pretty neat, I've never really seen anything like this before. Another thing that I tried out was seeing if the cabinet was compatible with other USB controllers, and to my surprise, it actually is, at least partially. The PS5 and Switch Pro controllers didn't work, which is a shame considering a lot of people probably have access to those, but a wired Xbox 360 controller and the 8-bit Do SN30 controller worked flawlessly, so depending on what you have access to, you might not actually need to buy the official Quarter Arcade's controller. Using a controller is a little bit weird though, because I couldn't find a way of selecting which turtle to play as. No matter which port I used, the first controller to be plugged in was always Leonardo, the second was Michelangelo, the third was Donatello, and the fourth was Raphael. This means that if you wanted to use a controller but you only had one available to you, you'd only be able to play as Leonardo. It's a bit weird how the USB ports aren't assigned to a particular turtle like the joystick controls are. However, what I will say is that despite all of this fumbling around with multiplayer options and the controller support, the actual gameplay is rock solid. It's obviously emulating the original arcade ROM, but it runs absolutely perfectly with no performance issues in the slightest. So in terms of the actual raw gameplay experience, you literally can't get any better than this. But now, let's move on to the part that everyone loves. How much does it cost, and is it worth the price of admission? The Quarter Arcade's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cabinet currently costs £250 or $300 via Amazon, with other retailers offering very similar prices. This is obviously quite expensive, but with the quality of the product being so high, it could be worth it depending on how much of a fan of this particular game you are, or how much of a general fan of the TMNT series you are. This price tag means that it's positioned as a premium collector's item, which I always think is a little bit of a shame. I would love for it to be more affordable so that it's more accessible for the average person. I do also think that considering this price, it does make it even more ridiculous that it doesn't come with a controller. And also, to be honest, maybe it should have had more than just one game installed. There is another Quarter Arcade's Turtles cabinet based on the Turtles in Time arcade game, but I think both of these products would have been made more attractive if they had both games available on them and the difference was purely cosmetic. They could have even put more of the Turtles games on there as a bonus. I mean, we only just rarely got the Cowabunga collection on consoles, which includes 13 games in the series. At the same time, I do understand that the Quarter Arcade's vision is clearly on authenticity, and having a dedicated machine that just plays the one game it's fully designed around is a part of that. But the idea of having a Turtles arcade machine that plays practically every retro TMNT game is also very appealing and would arguably be more worth the £250 asking price. The Quarter Arcade's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles machine gets 7 dodos out of 10. It's an extremely high quality product, and as a display item, it's absolutely perfect. It's a stunning replica of the original cabinet, and it's easily one of the best looking devices in my entire collection. Playing it in single player with the standard arcade controls, or even using an external controller, is also incredible, and the game itself runs flawlessly. However, where things start to get a little bit clunky is when you introduce the multiplayer element. It's just too crowded to play with such a small screen and the arcade controls. The external controller support is a good idea to get around this, but it doesn't come with any controllers and there's no HDMI output to connect it to a bigger screen, which results in one of the main draws of the game being removed. The price tag is also very high, which is fine considering how well built the cabinet is and the passion that clearly went into its creation, but it does mean that it's only really a realistic purchase for hardcore fans or collectors. For anyone else, it's probably worth waiting to see if you can get it on sale, but bear in mind that you might be waiting a very long time. But let me know what you think. Are you interested in picking up one of these Quarter Arcades for yourself? Also let me know what version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is your personal favourite. I would imagine that I'm in a bit of a minority preferring the 2003 series over the 80s version, but maybe I'm wrong. Also remember to give the video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more retro content like this coming very soon, check out A Handheld History, now available on Amazon, and I've been Rob from Retro Dodo, and I'll see you in the next one.